Did you know that not choosing the right lender can cost you the home that you write an offer on? In today's video, we're going to talk to you about choosing the right lender and why we think it should be a local one. Hi, I'm Jean.
And I'm April. Listen, buying a house is stressful. Between viewing homes, finding the one you love, writing the best offer possible so that the seller chooses you, it's stressful, and you don't want it to all fall apart because you chose the wrong lender.
So today we're going to talk about local lenders and big box or online lenders. So the first thing we would probably talk about would be hours. The hours that they are available. When you're out looking for homes and you're a buyer, we've taken them out, and Saturday night they find the house they want, and it might be a little bit above what they wanted to spend, but it's still, they think, within their budget, and they need to talk to their lender and make sure that they have got a pre-approval for that amount and what the payment's going to be every month. And that big box lender is not available until Monday morning.
Yep.
The local lender, though, they may just say, hey, shoot me a text and I'll let you know.
Yep. So we have lenders that we work with on a regular basis because we know, like, and trust them.
Exactly.
And we're able to just send them the information. We know what they need. We send it for the buyer, and they run the numbers and get that right back to the buyer straight away.
Exactly.
It's very easy. Honestly, it doesn't take them very long as they can do it on their phone or their computer and aren't in the middle of major surgery or something.
But even then, they usually have somebody else who can cover. But that's the beautiful thing, is that the local lender tends to be available when you're looking. Big box or online ones, they're usually available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 9 to 7 if you're lucky.
Yeah, not all lenders are created equal either. So some lenders, that's just, they have these hours that they work and that's all that they do. But lenders that are really into providing real estate assistance as far as mortgages and stuff, they are going to work the hours that realtors work.
Exactly, because lenders want to invest in relationships, or you want to find a lender who wants to invest in relationships. And local lenders usually want a relationship with the realtors that are in the area. They also want a relationship in the community because they want to be known. This is their life. This is their business. So they are very concerned with having a good reputation in the community and with the realtors and people who are buying.
Yep, and that goes to say too, as far as their relationships in the community, they feel responsible for the lending that they're doing these days, and so they really want to help first-time buyers, people that have credit that needs to be fixed. They want to spend the time and help them get through some of those hurdles.
Exactly, and a lot of local lenders will do financial planning with you. If you have some issues with your credit or whatever, they will help you and do some financial planning, whereas sometimes those online big box ones will just say, nope, you're not qualified, and that's it.
Yep.
So, and then you're on your own.
Yep.
So, and that relationship that lenders have with realtors is very important, because when you write an offer on a home, the realtor looks at more than just the price.
Yes.
So it may start out with price, but especially in this market, they're getting multiple offers. So if they've got it down to 3 offers that are very similar in terms and in price, they're looking at the lenders, and they know the lenders because we work with them all the time. Every offer, either a buying or selling side, no matter which you specialize in, you're dealing with lenders, and you know the ones who have a good reputation for communication, who close on time, who are willing to work with you. And you give that information to your sellers as a listing agent. You give that information to them, and that is something they will consider. They aren't going to want to choose an offer with a lender who is known to not communicate.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Communication is super important after you get a deal pending because so much happens on the back end. And so if you have a lender that's not willing to communicate with all of the team, there's a lot of people involved. There's the title company is communicating with them. Both agents are communicating and checking because we have these timelines that we have to meet for inspections and appraisals and different things like that. So it's very important to keep that communication open. And I'll be honest, I've had some deals where I've hardly had one peep out of the lender, and it's getting really close to closing, and I'm wondering if it's ever going to happen.
I had a deal actually where I got told by the lender, everything's great, everything's great, everything's great. And every week they would send me an update and tell me everything's great. And I thought, wow, this lender is so great. And then 2 days before closing, they said, oh, by the way, we have to push out closing for 2 weeks. You know, so
right.
And I remember that. I could tell you, I'm not going to tell you, but I could tell you exactly who that was.
Yes.
And realtors remember that, and that reputation is very important. So you want to have a local lender with a good reputation.
Yes. Well, it's important because our clients are looking to us to give them the feedback because they're not communicating with the lenders.
Exactly.
That's not how that works. And so, if we know there's a problem ahead of time, you and I are both like that. We just want to figure out a way to fix it or take care of the problem.
Exactly.
We would rather hit it head on early in the game and then not have to delay closing, because that's not really a good thing to have happen.
No.
So
no, it is not.
there can definitely be an out of that contract with delaying a closing.
Exactly. So, and speaking of communication, you want a lender who knows you and knows your file. You don't want to have to call up the lender and then be put on hold and talk to the next person and explain the whole situation again, and then get put on hold and talk to the next person, because those online big box lenders tend to have about a dozen people working on your case or on your file, and they don't know all the details. So every time you talk to somebody, you're having to re-explain it. Whereas a local lender, they know you, they know your file, they're going to know where it's at, and they'll be able to just answer your questions quickly.
We did have a client that they had a big lender or online lender that they used, and we had to push out the closing a couple of times, and there were some things happening in the back end that we weren't aware of at the time. Fortunately, we had a great listing agent and the sellers were willing to work with us, but what we found out is that something happened. It wasn't going to get resolved with that lender, and so basically the buyer wasn't going to be able to purchase that home after we've extended closing. So the reasons that we were given didn't seem that dramatic to us, so we suggested, let's just see if we can get you pre-approved with another lender, one maybe that we choose this time. And that's exactly what we did. And fortunately for them, I was able to communicate that with the listing agent and the sellers. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, especially in the market that we're in. So we got very fortunate, and actually because it was during COVID, that's why. But anyways, luckily they got pre-approved and were able to get that deal closed in a couple of weeks using a local lender. And so that made all the difference in the world. That deal almost completely blew up.
Wow. And so that was all a problem with the online lender and not communicating with you.
Oh my gosh. Communications, like the emails, the title company just kept collecting emails because you couldn't communicate with any one person. There were so many people handling the file, and there were cutoff dates for the file. And so if you didn't ask your question or get anything resolved by the state, it got pushed to the next week. And so I bet you we had 20 plus emails in the CC bar of the email when we were trying to communicate the title company and myself just to try to get answers. So it was kind of a nightmare.
That is a nightmare.
The worst case I've ever seen. So, yeah.
Well, that's the other side of the big box and the local lender is pre-approvals versus pre-qualifications. So normally a local lender will pre-approve you, whereas sometimes those big box and online lenders will only pre-qualify you, and then you're not really qualified to buy. That's just a, hey, what you told me based on what you said, yep, you can buy. So and that can cause problems and not get you to close. Also, we had a client who was pre-qualified by one of these large big box online lenders, and he was out looking at homes and writing offers and found a home he wanted and got into the inspections and paid for the inspections, and we got to appraisal time and found out he was not actually pre-approved. This was a pre-qualification, and they hadn't bothered to run all of his information to find out if he actually could get a mortgage. So now he had put out all this money, sellers had taken the home off the market, and now he has to back out and cannot buy, and was out a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's the thing you really want to be cautious about, is making sure that you really have a pre-approval and not a pre-qualification. So as agents, if we're handling a listing in regards to helping the seller, sometimes we have to look over those pre-approval letters very carefully in regards to who's buying and make sure that all of the boxes have been checked off. And so sometimes those letters are very tricky the way they're written, and that's why sometimes we like to call and have these conversations. It tells us a little bit more And it is very important because as a buyer, you don't want to go out, start paying for inspections, get under contract. You're going to go out be out a lot of money, and find out that lender didn't do his due diligence and take care of things. They are all about the quick pre-approval or pre-qualification to get people all excited and to use them. So
exactly. So go out and find yourself a local lender, one who has good communication, who is available when you need them, and who will work with your finances to create a financial plan that works for you.
yes, and remember, you can actually go out and interview several lenders. So pick 2 or 3 and ask them all the things that we talked about today and get to know them, and then pick someone that you feel that you can trust and that's going to work well with you and your personality.
And if you are wondering about what we were just talking about the pre-qualification versus pre-approval, check out our next video where we're going to explain all the differences between those 2 terms.